Okay.
All right.
All right. Greetings and welcome. This is JCBIY Events Talk Show, John Carr, Believe in You Talk Show, and I'm your director and producer, vocalist John Carr, a star from another galaxy, a soldier of love.
And I'm your co-host and assistant director, Valencia M. Don't say my name in your look. I saw you. Did you see him lipping what I was saying? Oh my gosh. I know my name. Okay. And today we have our special guest, Giles Mubarak, who is an attorney, law consultant, and public juvenile advocate, who was born in Paterson, New Jersey, and raised in the neighboring city of Passaic, New Jersey. Hello.
Hello. Hello. How are you? Greetings.
Thank you for joining us. And we just want to get you to tell, everyone a little bit about yourself, how you got into law, and why you became a juvenile advocate, and other things. Because you got a list of stuff, okay?
Yes, I do. Well, from the beginning, as mentioned, I'm from Paterson, New Jersey, and pretty rough town, pretty tough town. And growing up, I was a product of that environment. Grew up without a father, and so much of my male tutelage came from the individuals, from the guys in local neighborhood. And so I learned a lot about being a man from some guys who I wouldn't actually consider to stand by that manly principle today. But that was my upbringing, and I went down the wrong path in the process. And so I became a part of the juvenile system myself, in that trying to find myself, a single parent home, mother and I, really, really close relationship. And, the only male at home, felt like I had to be a man earlier than I actually should have. And so I carried this image of wanting to fight and protect the household and do all those things that unfortunately a lot of young kids find themselves in similar situations. But I was blessed. I was blessed to find my way out of it before things got serious. And in the process, I just saw too many friends of mine who not only are part of the juvenile system, but the graduation of that to the adult facilities. Mm-hmm. And the difference was 1 year. The difference is 1 year in age. Wow. From 17 to 18, the behaviors that pat you on the wrist will now get you a 10-year sentence. Oh, so, I was blessed to be intercepted, by some other caring adults. And in the process, I started working in the juvenile system, mm-hmm. and found that because I was a client of it, I knew what was missing. And I knew exactly what it was that would literally continue to keep me on that street vibe, because I wasn't learning anything. I was literally just overcoming the sentence or whatever the alternative sentence from judges. And so the juvenile system was missing a great deal of aftercare for young men. And I wanted to do something about it. Mm-hmm. So I got involved, and I became a counselor in the very same program that I was once a client of.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. The fact that, so now what's really powerful to me is that, your openness and saying that you were going down the wrong path, that you were a part of that system, you were in the system. And that, really what I want any listeners to take from that is that just because you make some bad decisions does not mean you have to continue on that path. There is hope for you. There are people out there who are gonna help you. You have to look for it, because they don't always they're not always forthcoming for people who look like us.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But I really just want to, that really stands out to me. But go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, in furtherance of that, we have things where a young kid 16 years old, let's just make the difference, the distinction between males and females. Today, if you have a young female who's 16 years old and maybe a young kid, 21, they are engaged in sexual affair or relationship affair, they will confine that young man at 21, suggesting that she's not the age of consent. She's 16. She doesn't have the mental bearings to think as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the flip side of that, you'll have a 15, 16-year-old boy who makes a mistake and you'll charge him as an adult. So,
absolutely.
So in what set of principles are they actually applying here? At one stage, 16-year-old is not of the age of consent to make decisions in which you are punished simply for dealing with her.
Mm-hmm.
But another level, a 15-year-old boy who makes a similar mistake, you'll give him an adult sentence.
Right.
Well, are they mentally equipped or not? Or do they have consent or not? So the system, the way it's designed, it's very selective.
Absolutely.
And oftentimes that selection, with the exception of young Caucasian males who do something absolutely draconian over the top, this is primarily designed for young Black and brown males. This waving up to the adult system as is specifically designed pretty much for Black and brown males, in this system making a determination on when they choose for you to be of an age of consent. I mean, we know that with this selective enforcement, that really we need people in our community to get involved and really teach kids the exact importance of that year or two, or how it's going to be applied, because every law that exists does not exist in favor of you, where they may exist in favor of someone unlike you. Yes.
Yeah. And it's, it's like that also when it comes to medical things, because at the age of, I think it's 14, kids can start signing their own papers or whatever. And as far as like consent goes, and decide on whether, they want to share information with their parent or whatever. So it's just like, I'm not understanding how, like you said, in one case, you're not mentally, you don't have the mental capacity to make that kind of decision, but you're gonna give, children who are still developing mentally, that kind of power for medical things too. So like,
right.
I'm just, it's inconsistent. It's very inconsistent.
Yes, across the board, it's been that way. And so the juvenile system is one that I believe is not designed for rehabilitation and assisting young males in actually finding a better path. It's a system that will pacify you at a young stage for offenses that 1 year later, they'll punch over the top and destroy the rest of your life by making you a felony. And, and so this is, and so I felt that it was a responsibility of mine to, while those young kids were still in that system, help them understand the difference of 1 year, the difference of next year, and what you think is a pat on the hand now, and the difference between tomorrow, and how that punishment will destroy, that same offense will destroy the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
So with that being stated, I'm going to ask you a question. At what point in your career did you realize that becoming an attorney was vital?
Oh, wow. Not until late. I had absolutely no aspirations to become an attorney, period. I, like many other African-American males, I had hoop dreams, football dreams, boxing dreams. Everything was related to physical activity sports, but again, though I was able to evade certain things as a juvenile, as I became an adult, I'm a product of the 80s. So I grew up in the very heavy crack cocaine era, where money seemed plentiful, and you know, the lower level individual had the nice car. It didn't matter. And so obviously I became attracted to that. Like many others, you know, you grow up in impoverished community, you know, one parent, you know, no access to things. And, you know, in the city of Paterson, I started slinging crack cocaine like everybody else. However, and I actually was arrested. I was arrested and I was confined. Fortunately for me, it didn't result into a conviction that would destroy my life in that way. But what I was seeing was all of my friends actually find themselves with severe sentences. We know that the sentencing bill had changed. We know the war on drugs had eventually, the Bill Clintons of the world, that they were going to punish individuals, starting with George Bush Sr. They were going to punish individuals over the top for crack cocaine and the difference with powder cocaine. And I was seeing all of my friends disappear for decades, you know, for what appeared to, you know, on the outside with materialism, appeared to look like some profiteering success, but really wasn't. You know, it was people from impoverished communities had nothing, and you have a government who puts this product in the streets and say, here, go get this money while we design another system to confine you afterwards.
Right.
And so later in life, you know, I was seeing individuals go to prison for things that I thought, while they may have done something, I may have been a witness to certain things. And I know that they did not do exactly what they were charged with. And so I'm seeing friends of mine with 20 and 30 years, and for some reason, the truth of the matter was never presented in court, in the way that they had been coerced and bullied into plea agreements. The facts that could have gotten them a fair and just penalty was somehow omitted, mostly by their attorneys who sold the police system. And I knew that somewhere the individuals who was going to save Black folks had to be Black folks. So, you know, I actually got this message that I had a responsibility to do something, take on, which was extremely difficult for me to accept. Because again, the first time I read a law book, I threw it down within 2 minutes. I don't want nothing to do with that. All this extra discussion, I ain't want nothing to do with that. And I threw it away. But it continued to come to—
Hold on, Giles. Okay. All right, we're back. Okay. So so you were explaining about the system before.
I was explaining, like, I think the last time we spoke, I informed you guys that I actually grew up under the tutelage of the 5% Nation. And so with that, you know, before I do that, initially, my grandmother had dreams of me becoming a pastor. So I studied the Bible, I mean, with great conviction. I was always challenged. I was always tested. And then at some point, the 5% Nation was introduced to my town. And when that happened, the moment I heard that the Black man was God, the maker on the cream of the planet Earth, I immediately transitioned into that thinking. And so much of my tutelage upbringing is through the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm, and Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. But in that process, we had very stringent study practices. We had to learn lessons. And so those study habits, later on in life, when I continued in my sleep subconsciously to be giving these messages, that I had a responsibility to get more involved with the legal practice and assisting people like us with getting fair and equal justice in the system. Never equal, but at least as fair as possible.
Right.
And initially, as I mentioned, when I began to study law, I was immediately discouraged simply because of the legalese. The legal jargon threw me. But when I picked it up, I realized that the same study habits that I had had all of my life with the nation was the exact same study habits that would be required for me in studying law. It was just a difference of information.
Right.
But the exact same, you know, you have to study your lessons, recitation, building in ciphers. This was the entire courtroom. Everything was exactly the same. So it got easier. And I knew that it got easier because God had a plan for me. And I can tell you that later, I ended up learning and recalling law that I never actually studied vigorously. You know, books that I may have just perused briefly, I was still recalling the data verbatim. And when things like that happen, this is bigger than you.
Right.
You know? And so I took that responsibility and decided, okay, I was going to do so as a paralegal. Initially, I wasn't certified to do any of the work I was doing. I initially started just by being a document drafter, you know, assist people with form filings. And at some point, a previous public defender that I had in one of my issues, we saw one another in the courtroom, and he convinced me, man, just go ahead and get certified and come on and join this team because you're needed.
Wow.
And so I decided, this was a Caucasian male, and I decided, okay, I'll do that. And initially, I went and I took the paralegal certification, which was extremely easy for me. And so the challenge was, there's much more to do than this, you know. And at the end of the day, I didn't want to be a paralegal who was going to be doing all of the writing, all of the research, all of the study, and none of the credit for it.
Right.
So, you know, I decided, let's go to the next level and enroll myself into law school and make this happen. And for me, law school is easy as well, very easy. So where I see people who, you know, no take from them, but when I see people who fail numerous times with the bar exam, you know, sometimes I am a little hard and say you're not studying hard enough. But the reality of it is I didn't study hard enough either, and I actually passed because this was something that was given to me. And so I accepted with that responsibility.
So this leads to my next question. Now that you're an attorney, what work do you see yourself moving forward?
You know, there's nothing specific. You know, we have so many problems. And, you know, if there's anything that's most important, it's to ally and create coalitions and team with folks with other attorneys that have that fortitude to get involved and fight a real fight, not the protest public fight. There's another fight inside that courtroom that many know the real way to travel, but for whatever reasons of fraternal commitment or fraternal connections, they choose to stay out of that. And I do understand there's another unwritten code, I'm sorry, that happens in the judiciary where you'll find yourself getting ticketed, car, you know, your vehicle. You know,
Go ahead.
Yes, it goes beyond that. You know, it goes beyond, you know, particular relationships, you know, the nepotistic type of relationships, you know, where you don't get the same fairness or you can't actually compromise certain things simply because when it's time for you to assist your client, the lack of friendships can often be costly. And a lot of times when you don't join or ally with particular individuals, they can make the job a lot tougher. So for me, it's really about continuing to build the type of relationships with other Black and brown attorneys who have it in them, are not concerned about the actual dollar and cent, which at the end of the day, that's a very different.
Yeah.
But in order to do the work efficiently, and in order to do it the right things, you really can't be concerned with that, because the time that's required to do the right thing is substantially greater than it is to negotiate plea agreements. And so many are more concerned with, getting rid of issues at a quicker pace.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones who are actually hurt and aggrieved by that are people who listen. So yeah, that the answer to that question is actually building a better coalition, a stronger team of Black and brown folks across the country, of attorneys who are willing to really concern ourselves with a revolutionary type tactic to fight against the system. And we know it's going to be tough, because the further you go up into the United States Supreme Court, you go up into federal court, you start to take on this image of Black Panther type revolutionary, and it's a whole different war at that point. A lot of intentional and spiteful stuff begins to happen, and at the end of the day, it affects your client more so than you, and so you don't want to do that either. So it's tough, but at the moment, my main concern is helping as many as I possibly can.
Well, educating, absolutely educating people, like you were saying before, about the law, what their local laws is. When we talked to you before, you were talking about, educating yourselves and the community about the local laws. Also, I know people are when it comes to voting, they're always talking about the big elections,
federal level
presidents. Yeah, but
right.
It's all the small ones, like of all the
Right.
the judges, the local judges, the district attorneys,
right.
All of those things. We have to be willing to vote on in those times also, because that stacks the deck against us a lot of times if we don't. And so it's really important for people to understand that if you're going to vote in the primary of like you said, the federal election, you need to vote in all of them, because all those people that are in the Senate, the Congress, they're all making laws.
And your local state, your local elections, your municipality, those things, who controls your water, who controls things of your everyday needs. And so in assembling that team that I talk about, it's more about not so much that we will then take on certain approaches in the court, but assembling that team so that we could be educators of the public. Because many people are under the belief that representing yourself or doing certain things are so difficult that they have to hire an attorney. But on many occasions, there are legal defenses that you may have that your attorney is just not going to step into. But if you are educated enough to put that on the record, make legal arguments on your own behalf, then your attorney by law is forced to convey that. They're forced to comply that argument. So that's a way of getting people to help themselves. And what I find is that many attorneys will help you then, as long as they can excuse themselves from creating the slippery slope. So in other words, if you filed a particular motion yourself and you had outside assistance, you had a legal consultant, you had outside assistance, you filed the motion, that attorney then can say, well, Your Honor, against my advice, they submitted this motion. And by law, I am now required to conform that motion to the rules. You left them out, but yet forced them to assist you with what was your legitimate issue. So that comes when we teach the public on how to do things for themselves. And so it's a lot harder to punish the educators then, when in actuality, it's the particular client, it's the particular defendant or whomever who made the legal argument, with our assistance, of course. But if we avail ourselves, we make ourselves available to the public, and we start teaching individuals exactly what their issues are, we can help them begin their own defense the right way. And then by law, whomever they have as an attorney is then required to further that in the system accordingly. Other than that, you'll have too many different threats against you and your career from the powers that be when you step into certain things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That makes sense. And this next question I'm going to ask, I know I hear you touching on it. They're so connected and linked together, but I'm going to ask it. In the midst of social injustices, what message do you have for myself, Valencia, and the rest of the viewers and communities?
When you say that, well, so social injustices are everywhere. They're around us. And right now you have this platform. And obviously this platform is available to so many more people. There, thousands have become journalists where yesterday we didn't have a voice through, people like yourself. And so it's really giving attention to those matters and lobbying with attorneys, literally, because ultimately everything falls within a law. Doesn't matter what it is. There's a law attached to every single thing we do. And having attorneys that when you see injustices, I listen, the protests, the march, they're great. I understand that. But, the government have prepared themselves for marches and protests. They realize, give them 30 days of fussing, something else will take place somewhere else tomorrow. They're out here. They've prepared themselves for that.
Yeah.
We have to literally begin to put things in the courtroom and then literally hold those individuals responsible. As I mentioned to you guys before, the municipal police departments are not required to know law.
Right.
And that was very important.
Say that again. Say that again, though. Say that again.
Municipal police departments who are given the title of law enforcement officers are not required to know law as a job requirement.
Wow.
How that happens is beyond me. You are required to know something about computer programming. You are required to know Excel, Word, or something if you are involved with computers. In every field in life, if you are a construction worker, you are required to know something about that job. Law enforcement officers who are giving the most authoritative power in this country, at least at the municipal level, those who are doing the most corruption, the killings, are on a municipal level, who are not required to know any law whatsoever that they are charged with enforcing. It's unreal.
That's ridiculous.
It's unreal. And the individuals, the chief officer of that is your mayor. So when we are voting for mayors, those mayors are then going to, they're going to assign whomever they want to be their police chief, their captains, whoever. These people are now we have to force mayors. If you're going to grandfather certain officers in that have been for a specific period of time, okay, we can accept that. You don't want to take anyone's pension or whatever, but from a certain date, at the very least, you have to be required to have an associate's degree, a 2-year degree, or a paralegal course that we can at least understand that the individuals who are policing our communities know the law that they're policing. These guys, they make arrests, they pull up on you. They have no idea what you've done. They'll try to connect what you've done and go read a book and try to force fit what it is they believe you've done. They have no idea. You can go study 2 or 3 statutes yourself from any criminal statute book and see a police officer and ask them about it. 90% of them won't have a clue what you're talking about. I offer your listeners, I offer your viewers, find a criminal statute somewhere, something that they don't use daily. So naturally, we know that they have, they do arrests with, drug arrests daily, Even though they do shootings or whatever, naturally they learn those things by default. But look and find a particular statute that says it's subsection C. A little bit deeper than what's in your face immediately. They have no idea what they'll never even discuss that. YouTube videos where an individual maybe learned in some form of law and ask the police, and we find that far too often those police have no answer for what it is. This is the norm. This is the norm. This is the norm across the country, but the responsibility is not on the police. The responsibility is on their superiors. If you don't require I know law to get the job, and all it does is requires that I have a GED, then that's what I'm going to come with. But that's all that's required to be a municipal. It's unreal that we have as bigger problems. Lives are being taken all over the country in the system and by individuals that know any single thing about their child. And that's
unreal. Well, if you don't know the difference between a taser and a gun, you shouldn't be a cop.
But it's mandatory that you know how to shoot a gun. It's mandatory that you score a specific point in shooting a gun, but it's not mandatory at all that you know any laws that you are pulling people over for and arresting them for. It doesn't make sense. But on the federal level, it's mandatory. CIA, FBI, DEA, they have to have an education in law on some level. They have to have a criminal justice education or something to that extent.
Right.
On a municipal court level, rather,
they don't.
Where the bigger problems lie, they're not required to do so. Yeah. And that sucks.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Last time we talked, you talked about your daughter being a sheriff, did you say
yes, she's a sheriff officer.
Okay. Okay.
She's a sheriff officer here. And
did you see that coming? Did you see that coming?
Absolutely not. My daughter was a handful. My daughter was a handful, and and she even made some poor choices as a young girl. Finding herself interested in the cool fly guy who was involved with the streets, and her mother was against it completely. But by the time her mother complained to me, I realized that this little cool fly guy was making a pretty decent dollar in the street, and he had already crossed the intimate line. So I told him, I informed her mother, no, you're not gonna run her away from him. That's not gonna happen. He has a little bit too much power below the waist right now in order to make that happen. So I got to sit down on him myself. Get in and out of that, man. We're gonna talk about something. If she gets in trouble for whatever you do, you got a problem with me. I'm coming in. If you get knocked off or whatever, and she gets in trouble, you got a problem with me. If she leaves school, you have a problem with me. Those are two mandatory requirements I have for you. You protect her with whatever you're doing. You make sure she stays in school. And the reason why I insisted on that was because I knew if she stayed in school, with her being around me, she would outgrow him.
Right.
So I pushed him to help he literally insisted in his own demise because you stayed on her about school, and I knew if he stayed on her about school with her mother and my voice in her ear, she would eventually outgrow him because she would see a fly dude in school who wasn't so threatening to her life, what she wanted to do. And that's exactly what happened. She eventually found a boyfriend that was in college with her and, let that go easily and peacefully. So I knew that was the only way to go with her because you try to push him away too hard and you push it right to him even more.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I put the onus on him. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
It was daring. It was daring. I took the chance though. It was daring and it worked.
Well, it was a better way than most fathers would have handled it. You hit it with intelligence as opposed to brute force.
Right.
Right. It was risky. It was risky. It was risky. Okay.
It was definitely risky. And don't get it twisted. It didn't hurt though, that I did have a previous experience in the street, it didn't hurt
Mhm.
that to some degree of his knowledge, you know, I'm not just an attorney on the soft end of the game. So to some benefit, you know, my past benefited me there, you know, to some degree.
Mhm.
But no, but the other side, went to college and went to school for criminal justice too. But I made a promise with her, and that was I would assist you, that it wouldn't be complicated. I would help you through that because I wanted to make sure that she was knowledgeable at her job, that she knew what she was doing. The heck with, you know, what everyone else is doing. I knew that if I put that in you, at least those who are associated with you would also have, you know, some interest in what you have. So yeah, she I'm proud of her very much.
Awesome. Awesome. What would be I think we asked you this last time we talked to what if you would recommend an action step or action plan for us, what would it be?
Wow. And you know, seriously, first and foremost, when we're talking about justice reform, is that we start holding the right people responsible, that we really force, again, to me, one of the biggest cures of our problem is beginning to mandate an education for municipal law enforcement. To me, that's huge. You know, I just think that along with the voting process, we are always telling people to vote, but we're not teaching people how to vote.
I agree. 100%.
And that is important. And what to vote for. Listen, I am not against all Republican ideas. I have a lot of Democratic ideas that I think suck completely, that I think handcuff us, you know, but I think that, you know, many of us have inherited, you know, our political stance, you know, our political choices and, you know, our political views. We inherited from it. And, you know, I inherited being a Democrat from my mother, who inherited from her mother, who at the end of the day, I love my grandmother to death. My grandmother couldn't read and write. So you inherited something from someone who didn't understand a damn thing about politics. But she was told primarily by the clergy. You know, that's where their influences, you know, the grandparents, their influences came from clergy. And so we know clergymen, many of them, you know, they have this quid pro quo involvement, you know, and so I think those of us who understand policy, we have a requirement to begin to even enforce that as, I think, a core curriculum in every school. Because this is something, you know, teaching kids taxes is I think should be a core curriculum in every school. If it's if it's going to be a part of your mandatory existence on this planet, it should be a part of your mandatory education.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's our education system. Oh my Lord. Crazy.
But, and if you're not going to make that mandatory, then why? Then there's a benefit to someone who doesn't want that.
Yes.
Because, you know, we know that, you know, from biblically, death and taxes, right? This is what we've been taught forever. You know, the guarantees in life, death and taxes. And so if taxes are going to be a guarantee in life, then it should be a guarantee in school for every school, period. And to not do so, and for it to not even be a discussion, you have to look at who's benefited from the ignorance. You know, and so I just think that there are many things that are not just etched in law, but again, the underlying current is that there's always a law involved, because if you don't do your taxes, that's what you're going to be dealing with, the law. You know, in everything you do, there is a law involved. And so I think that teaching people, all kids should know some basic fundamental aspects of law, even if it's your municipal level law. You don't have to become an attorney, but there are just some things that I think are mandatory requisites of life. Taxes, learning taxes, mandatory requisites of life. You know, understanding how to vote. You know, the Democratic Party has been presenting the same issues since the 60s. Since the 60s. When the hell are we overcoming them, and why is this still a platform for those discussions? You know, so it's still a platform for those discussions is because the voters don't know how to hold you accountable and hold you responsible in order for us to lock that in and lock that out permanently.
Yeah.
So
sometimes it's the lesser of two evils. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's like you, because I totally agree with you that I don't think that all Republican ideas are bad. I don't think that all Democratic ideas are good.
Exactly.
So like, where do you go from there? Like, you know, independent. What do we do with that? You know? So
well, I'll highlight this the most. I believe the young lady, sister named Erica Alexander, I believe, or Michelle Alexander, right? With the book, The New Jim Crow. You know, I'll take this. For Black folks in the community, for years, we considered Bill Clinton to be the first Black president. You know, we adopted him as such.
Yeah.
The reality of it is, in our criminal justice system, Bill Clinton is the worst president that ever.
He did a lot of things.
The worst president in the history. The worst president for Black folks in the history of America.
Absolutely.
He literally created this prison boom greater than anyone ever.
Privatizing.
But not only that, but what he's done to the social assistance programs, the damage that he has done. Republicans were able to see just how ignorant we were in our studies when we got right out there, and on 3 separate occasions went to bat for his wife. These people don't learn anything. This man destroyed them, and now they're out there lobbying for his wife at every chance. So it shows just through, just through omission, they haven't learned anything. The greatest damage to them has come from him, and because she comes, this is his wife, and we are not understanding clearly that we haven't learned a single lesson from him as someone special to us. It's almost like a Stockholm syndrome, how we literally fall in love with, with our oppressor. It's unreal.
Yeah.
So that is a clear understanding of exactly how much we need to learn politics on a different level, law on a different level, and being taught by many of our educators out here. We have enough Black educators out here who can literally give up their time, and teach the citizens, teach our communities, simplify it for them. Take away the legal terminologies, take away the jargon, simplify it for them. You can I've learned the way to simplify this for children. And I didn't go to Yale. I didn't go to Harvard. But I did get this education from the Minister Louis Farrakhan, who helps me simplify things for children. And for me, and I simplify this for children. And if you can't do that, then you don't know it.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned.
Speak in layman's terms. You should be able to speak in layman's terms. And that's across the board. It can be very intimidating for people. And then a lot of people don't want to ask the question. They don't want to feel stupid. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially when someone is speaking over their head and their, their political, or not political, but in their jargon or whatever, it's very important to be able to talk to people and
in their language.
Oh yeah.
In their language.
Yes.
And if I can make if I can come in the hood and I can make law as simple as legal slang, then I am doing my job. I'm doing what I'm supposed to, because the intent is not to make myself appear educated. It's to help you become educated.
Right.
And it doesn't have to happen in such a grammatical way that, I sound like Eric Michael Dyson every day. No, I just and simplify it for you. Because at the end of the day, the ones who are arrested, they don't know it at all.
Right.
Period. Yeah. So if I simplify it for you, you still have a PhD compared to the ones that's pulling you over. They don't know anything. So we have, I think that we collectively have a responsibility to start to force more, and it doesn't cost money for that.
Yeah.
We have the platform.
Yeah.
This is social media. It doesn't cost money, so we don't have to worry about how much is given to the educational system. You know, how much money is going to be set aside. I don't need none of that. It's not necessary.
Right.
Those who are educated in this, who understand the importance of this, have this platform. I'm on a telephone right now.
Mm-hmm.
We can get on a telephone weekly, a coalition of brothers. We can take turns on different subject matters and teach our general public, you know, Black and brown kids out here, what it is that they're going to definitely be dealing with every day of their natural lives as long as they live here in this country. And it's our responsibility to do so. Again, I never had intention on being an attorney. This came to me in my sleep. I wrestled with God on why he gave me such a huge task. I wanted nothing to do with this, but I realized that it's something I do good, and it's something I do with passion. I love it, and I'll do it for free. Now, don't the listeners out there, don't you think that I'm going to do it all for free, because I do need it. But at the end of the day,
I hear that. Yeah. Oh my God.
You know, but at the end of the day, this is so important. It's very important, and we have to get past, you know, all of the what white America isn't doing for us.
Mm-hmm.
We can do these things for ourselves. We have enough written in law that we can make things happen ourselves by simply holding people accountable to what's already written.
Right.
Really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So give your information. How can you be contacted? How can you be reached?
Yes, I'm Giles Mubarak. You know, my phone number is 856-369-6262. My email is gblegalconsultant@gmail.com. The website is almost done. The website is almost done. I am waiting on I'm waiting on a young lady that you know very well. That I think that will be. But I think that literally we'll be buying our host tomorrow or Monday. So we'll have a new website up and going. And we're going to be having teaching platforms and seminars on the website, so that we can start by example. And hopefully from that point, we can start to bring people in and add to what it is that I want to do. I want to be able to show the brothers and sisters out there in law that this is a responsibility of ours. This is what we should be doing. In fact, it's therapeutic, because the more you do it, the more you learn yourself of how important you are. And so, yes, that's my handle. You know, again, gblegalconsultant@gmail.com. You know, phone number, business line is 856-369-6262. I'm also on Facebook as Giles Mubarak as well. And we'll have a website available to you. Yes.
Okay. Well, we're gonna post all of this anyway, so we'll put all of that information down so people can get in touch with you. We also have a campaign, Be a Father campaign luncheon that's coming up in June 12th, and I think you're going to be speaking at that.
A little formal introduction. Our keynote speaker is Dr. LaRon, but we want to introduce you to the network.
Okay.
Have you introduce who you are and what services you provide. But I know somewhere on our calendar, we're going to have you come at our social networking events and be a keynote speaker.
Yeah.
Justice for us, justice for just us, you know, something.
You got it.
So
yes, you got it.
Yeah.
You got it. I'm with you guys on whatever we can do to get this important message across. You know, Tamika, Samauri, you know, all of those individuals out there that's fighting this cause, you know, I'm proud of everyone, you know, but those of us who are lawyers in this field, legal practitioners, there's a much easier route that we can get this done than protesting.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor to have you on the JCBIY Events Talk Show, the John Carr Believe in You talk show. Again, I am your director and producer, vocalist John Carr, a star from another galaxy, a soldier of love.
All right. They know us. We already introduced
Listen to
ourselves
her,
once.
man. She's
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much for
Yes,
spending time
yes.
with us and just,
It's a pleasure.
informing us and educating us. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
It's a pleasure.
All right. Until
All
next
right,
time.
God bless.
God
Thank
bless.
you.
All right.
You got it.
Bye.